Welcome to the Leaders Who Scale podcast, and we are here with Ron Diamond, the founder of Diamond Wealth, who transforms the way that family offices are run by investing and focusing on real estate, private equity, and venture capital. The whole element here is to share resources and best practices, to strive for efficiencies, and build generational wealth one pillar at a time. Welcome to the Leaders Who Scale podcast, Ron Diamond.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, I know that you're making massive impact in terms of the family offices and things like this. So thank you for your time today.
My
Tell us
pleasure.
a little bit, tell us a little bit in terms of what you do with your family office. Like I know we mentioned real estate, private equity, venture capital, all stable industries. So tell us a little bit in terms of what you do there.
I have four pillars of what I do, real briefly. One, I used to run a hedge fund and I sold it. So we have a syndicate of about 124 families between 250 million to 30 billion, and we invest together in the private market. That's private equity, venture capital, real estate credit. Two, I sit on some advisory boards. Three, I run the family office group for Tiger 21. And then four, I put together some family office initiatives. I did one at Stanford. I did one at University of Chicago Booth, and I'm currently doing one at Oxford.
Okay, perfect. And tell me, what does a typical day look like for you? You might tell me, Jay, there's no such thing as a typical day, but tell us what a day looks like for you, Ron.
Jay, there's no such thing as a typical day.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
all
today. Okay, tell me your plan today, for example. So
I've
obviously,
got I've got two webinars, I've got one interview, I've got three Zoom calls, and I've got two meetings. So that's my day today.
okay, that makes sense. Tell me, in terms of in your industry, what are some of the new trends happening? I mean, are we going to talk AI? No, what are we going to talk about the trends hitting your industry right now?
Well, family offices, so there's currently about $10 trillion in capital in family offices. And just to kind of put that in perspective, there's about 6.5 trillion globally in the entire hedge fund universe. So this is larger than the entire hedge fund universe. But even more important, over the next 20 years, we're about to see the largest transfer of wealth in history. We have $124 trillion that's moving downstream from the baby boomers to the next gen. So this will be the largest transfer of wealth, and it'll fundamentally change the way companies are financed. So the two areas that for family offices where it's going to change, A, it's going to fundamentally change the way companies are financed, but B, it's also going to fundamentally change a lot of philanthropic activities because a lot of these family offices, every family has issues with different things. It could be cancer, it could be diabetes, it could be autism, it could be anything. And, my North Star, I don't think you could run a philanthropy exactly like a business, but I think you can run it more like a business. And my father passed from prostate cancer at a very young age. He was 57. And my first boss was Michael Milken. And Michael Milken developed prostate cancer at the exact same time.
Wow.
And what my dad did is what most people would do is you go to two, three, four doctors, get second, third, fourth opinions. And he lived 3.5 years and then he passed. What Milken did was he basically created like a venture capital fund. Basically,
Oh
he
wow.
2 million here, 500,000 here, in order to save his life. As a result of that, he invested up to $100 million. Because of him, you, I, and the most male listeners will die with, but not of, prostate cancer. Fast forward 30 years, Bill Gates, irrespective of what you think of him, I would argue he did more for the cure of COVID than the US government. And then, Eric Lefkowski, who lives near me, he started Groupon. His wife had breast cancer. And so as a result of that, he didn't like the data. As a result of that, he started a company called Tempest, not to make money, but to save his wife. So I don't think you could run. It's not a panacea. I don't think you can run a philanthropy exactly like a business, but I think you can run it more like a business. And I think the real true value for these families, it will fundamentally change the way companies are financed, and we could touch on that later. But the true value, I think, is how a lot of these real world problems are going to get solved.
Okay. No, that makes sense. And how are you helping that transfer from the baby boomers, down to passing down these assets? What sorts of things are you putting in place, Ron, to maybe making that transition as smooth as possible?
Well, from a macro standpoint, what I'm doing is, well, first of all, understand the model doesn't work. Only 25% of family offices make it to the second generation. 10 make it to the third, and 5 make it to the fourth. So start with the premise that the model doesn't work. Family offices today, in general, are very fragmented, very inefficient, and very siloed. How do you change that? And what happens is somebody has a liquidity event, they sell their company for $1 billion, and they start investing. And that's the last thing you should do. There's no playbook. What they should do is they should talk to an estate planning attorney. They should get their governance set. They should get their mission statement done. They should get their next gen and succession plans done. Then they should start investing. So understand also that this is a new industry. Only 68% of the family offices started since 2000 and half since 2008. So what I'm trying to do from a macro standpoint is how do we change the fact that only 25% make it to the second gen and 10 to the third? What I think the answer, and it's not a perfect solution, but it is a solution, and I think it's the best one, is to do it at universities. So I put together a family office initiative at Stanford, and I put together one at University of Chicago Booth with a few other people, and I'm about to put together one at Oxford University. And so I think by training the next gen, I think that's going to be the difference. But I still have to execute. It's a big endeavor.
Okay, no, I love that idea because I'm a trained teacher. I taught, economics in high school for 10 years. And so I think that element of getting that education in early, and maybe having more education, maybe more seminars, opportunities, maybe getting some people to, spread the word to get more information around this could be powerful. Hey, Ron, I meet you next year and we bump into each other, let's say in San Diego next year, and you say, Jay, I remember last year when we connected this time last year, that goal I spoke to you about, I met that goal. What was that goal? What did we speak about?
The goal is to basically, from a macro standpoint, to change the direction and the course of family offices to make it less efficient, more efficient, less siloed, less fragmented, and by doing that through the university system. So if I can execute and if it's done properly, I would be able to say that we've had success. It's not going to solve everything, but we're making inroads into making family offices more efficient.
What's your biggest challenge in being able to execute that, would you say?
Well, it's massive. I mean, there's roughly what 15,000 family offices throughout the world. I can go to PitchBook and I can find the top private equity firms, top 100, from the largest to the smallest, and top venture capital firms. They don't have that for family office. There's no list. And so it's a very opaque industry. So the biggest challenge is the fact that A, it's a new industry. B, the model doesn't work. C, we're you're the conferences that these people go to, in general, and there are some good ones, but in general, the model doesn't. It's a pay to play model. So where are these people learning and getting education? Just because you sold widgets and made a lot of money doesn't mean you can invest. They're two totally different skill sets.
Okay, no, that makes perfect sense. I know you're a reader, you're an avid reader. What's the last book that you read? What are you currently reading? And, what do you like to read to kind of stay on top of things?
I try. I read a lot. Obviously, I read a lot of stuff in the business to stay on top of everything. The Economist, the Journal, the different periodicals. The last book I read was, let's see, I read The Go-Giver, which I think was a terrific book, and I read From Strength to Strength, which I thought was an outstanding book from Arthur Brooks. He's a professor at Harvard and teaches a course on happiness.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And how are you leveraging social media? I know you mentioned a couple of webinars and things like this. How important is LinkedIn? Is like getting visible for you in terms of your business? And what are some of the strategies that you're working with Cody and the team to kind of get more and more visible?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't really handle that on a day-to-day basis. Cody handles most of the
Yeah.
social for me,
Yeah.
so he's more prepared to answer that question. But we're very active on LinkedIn. Got roughly 45,000 followers. We try to post, but we try to post content that that's value add. In other words, when we post, there's no agenda. We're not raising any money. We're not looking for anything from anybody. I don't have clients. I have a syndicate of investors we invest with, but we try to add content and add value, and by doing that, hopefully, um, people will read it. We put together a newsletter. We put together a series of podcasts, and I do a lot of speaking as well.
Okay. Yeah, but that's thanks for sharing that. What's the difference in terms of like where is the main focus? Is it real estate? Is it private equity? Is it venture capital? And like, what is your favorite angle? Do you have a favorite sort of asset type? Yeah.
In the family office space, the two biggest asset classes are private equity and real estate, and that's because they've been historically the most profitable asset classes, and they're very large and they're growing exponentially. So it would be private equity and real estate.
Okay. No, that's powerful. So someone said Ron is an amazing connector. He brings wisdom, humor, and a focus on innovation to conversations about family business. I'm glad to call him a friend and colleague, which is, quite good words there by Karen Yanis there. What types of innovations are you really honing in on? We might have touched upon this, but are there any innovations that you're really excited about for 2026?
That I'm working on, or just innovations from in the global economy.
Both, like, in terms of what you're doing, is there anything that you haven't mentioned that's like, I'm creating this app or I'm using AI here? So we can touch upon both. So first of all, in terms of what you're doing in terms of innovations that you're excited about.
I guess I already touched on it. It's real. The innovation's really at the university level, because I think that when I announced what we're doing at Booth, I got calls from Harvard, from 10 different schools, and so I think in 5 years, every major business school is going to be having a family office initiative. I mean, right now, the top kids out of the top business schools want to get into private equity or real estate or venture capital or hedge funds. Nobody wants to go into family offices. But with 124 trillion moving downstream, my belief is that in 3, 5, maybe 7 years,
Okay.
this will be the first choice of these families. So that's the main thing that personally, and then from a macro standpoint, AI is going to fundamentally change the world. I mean, I gave a lecture at Stanford, and the professor who spoke before me had a picture of a fire, a picture of a wheel, the word internet, and the word artificial intelligence. And that's kind of how fundamentally things are going to change society. So I think AI is changing on a day-to-day basis, and it's just there's a there are a lot of problems that are going to develop from it, but there's also, I'm an optimist. There's also a lot of really good things, particularly in the healthcare space.
Okay. Perfect. And yeah, to round things off, who are you looking to connect with? Is there like a particular type of organization or like family office, or like is there someone that you're looking to connect with in that regard?
No, not really. I mean, we don't really have clients, so I try to, I guess, more from if I could make a slight difference in this. I think that as private equity and venture capital disrupted the public markets in the late '80s, I believe that family offices, they're never going to replace, but I do think they are starting to disrupt the private equity model. And the problem with the private equity model is you buy a private equity firm buys a company in Des Moines, Iowa, a garage door company. When they buy it, I can tell you when they're going to sell it. And it's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I know how they're compensated. So they're going to sell it in about 5 years. And then typically they're going to sell it perhaps to a strategic, but probably to another private equity firm. So, and I know when they're going to sell it, which is going to be about 5 years, because that's how they're compensated. So the model, the private equity model, which is a superior model to the public model. The public model was broken because you have to manage earnings every 90 days. When I run my hedge fund, you got to report to me or somebody on Wall Street every 90 days. That's not a good way to run your business. So private equity took off. when I graduated from college because it was a better model. 2% covers the overhead, 20% I make money if you make money. What happened is it became an AUM game. So family offices right now are starting to disrupt. Again, they'll never replace, but they're starting to disrupt them. And if you look at what happens is over the course of 20 years, this one garage door company, which I mentioned, could change hands 4 times. And if you look at the taxes and the friction and the just the inefficiencies and the disruption in the business versus a family office who has something called patient capital, which is the biggest value add that we have, where we could buy it, hold it for 20 years and compound because we don't really care about IRR, the results aren't even close. The problem is very few family offices can execute today. I think that's going to change, and that's what I'm trying to work on.
Okay. No, that's very well laid out there. Thank you, Ron. And how can people get in contact with you? Yeah, how can people connect with you in the best way?
I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, and then we have familyofficeworldmedia.com is our site where we put together a newsletter and some blogs and some different things where it's just content. So familyofficeworldmedia.com.
That's absolutely fantastic. Ron, thank you for hopping on today. I know you got a busy day ahead, but really exciting in terms of some of the things coming up in your space. And yeah, thank you for sharing this time with us today. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. No worries. Thank you.